Errol was bringing it up earlier about Tom Brady and where he ranks among the greatest quarterbacks. And you actually posted a video about 2 hours ago saying that you think Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback, but not the greatest athlete of all time. So go through what you were referencing in that, and maybe how many athletes you would take over him when it comes to all time, or which specific ones, I guess.
Okay, let's start with the quarterback aspect of it. I mean, I think clearly he has defined himself as the greatest of all time. You might not like it, but you can't really argue against it. I think the only person who has an argument is future Patrick Mahomes. But that's the only person who has an argument. I would put him on my Mount Rushmore, of the greatest I've seen, right? It's a little difficult because you have the individual athletes. So you have Floyd Mayweather and Serena Williams and people like that who have achieved individually. And then you have the team sport athletes, and you have the LeBron Jordan aspect of it. To me, LeBron himself is a one-man dynasty, right? You put him on any team he's gone to, he turns him from lottery team to contender, essentially. And then there's just a degree of athleticism involved. It's nitpicking. So if you said Brady's the greatest ever, I'm not mad at that opinion, given what he's accomplished. I just feel like the dynamics of football are a little different. Clearly every team he's been on has benefited from his presence. But this year, he's surrounded by a lot of good personnel. The defense really won that game. Early in his career, the defense won a lot of those games. Obviously, he had Belichick around him. So I'm not taking away any of what he did, but there's just a certain dynamic structure. I think it's a little bit different in football than it is in basketball. So ultimately, I'd have him on my Mount Rushmore, and that's nothing to sneeze at.
Well, I will say this. He's either one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game or one of the luckiest quarterbacks to ever play the game. That's for sure.
You can't be that lucky that often, right? I mean, they also cheated a little bit in New England. We forget about that. But nobody's that lucky. That's the point. Like we're okay. Like you can rationalize it away or explain it away at some point, but then when it gets so overwhelming, the common denominator is Tom Brady. The common denominator can't be luck every time.
As you guys know, we are talking to senior host of SI and also the host of Robin Lundberg show, Robin Lundberg. Now, Robin, we were talking about Tom Brady and how great Tom Brady has been throughout the last 2 centuries or whatever, decades. The guy's unbelievable. The guy he never ages. He's 43 years old. He's still playing in the game. I'm surprised he hasn't played for 50 years. It's just unbelievable on what he has done as a player and how much success he's had. Do you think with all the success Tom Brady has had, does he stand out as the greatest athlete of our era?
No, I mean, it's Mount Rushmore, like I said. So, who's better, LeBron or Brady?
Mm-hmm.
They both
LeBron, yes.
I mean, or you could, I guess you could argue either way, right? Like it comes down to a preference or a specific point on that. Serena or Brady, Tiger or Brady. I discount golf, so I wouldn't really throw it to, but I'm just using another example. So I think it comes down to he's on that short list. And ultimately, when it comes to team sports, I think it basically boils down to a LeBron versus Brady debate and where you fall on that.
I would agree with you.
Another one that I was thinking of too is Michael Phelps as well. All he's accomplished in the Olympics, I would definitely put him maybe even number one in this athlete realm.
Here's my thing on this, and I know this pisses some people off. The best athletes just don't wind up in the swimming pool first off, right? It's not the first thing you do when you're like, all right, we're all competing in the schoolyard. Like, I'm going to be the best in the swim. He's the best swimmer ever. No questions asked. And I say this as a former distance runner. Like I was a distance runner. I think I was 5th in the state of Maryland in the 2-mile when I was in high school. Right. And I actually won the best athlete award in my high school. I played basketball and soccer and track. And it was a crock because there was no way I was the best athlete in my school. It wasn't even close. Maybe I was the token white boy on the basketball team or just the number of things that I did. But, if I was a good enough athlete, I would have run the 100 meter. I would not run the 2 mile, right? Like if I was fat, first thing you do is racing. So I think Michael Phelps is tremendously accomplished, but even if you're having like a Usain Bolt versus Michael Phelps debate, I would lean to the sprinter because that's the first thing you're doing. Let's get and have a race. And then eventually you find your niche if you're not in one or two things. And in the build that Phelps has, the breath control that Phelps has. All those things are so incredibly suited to being in the swimming pool. He's unbelievable there, but it's a little bit too specialized, I think, for me to put him in that broader thing with where I think you just have more talent competing for those spots.
So we're in New York, and I want to know your opinion. What are your thoughts with the hire of Robert Saleh? And where do you think the Jets have to go this offseason to really rebuild this team to possibly be a playoff team next year? I mean, DeShaun Watson, he's a big name that everybody keeps talking about. The Jets are his number one target all of a sudden. When the Jets were the laughingstock of the league a year ago, now all of a sudden, with the season that they have the number 2 pick. Robert Saleh comes in. Now Richard Sherman, Allen Robertson are posting up things that they want to go there. And now everybody wants to go play for Robert Saleh and the New York Jets. So what are your thoughts of what the Jets need to do in the offseason, what Joe Douglas needs to do in the draft, and do the Jets make that move for DeShaun Watson?
Well, look, when a lot of these coaches are hired, does anybody actually know? Like, people like to pretend that they know. We'll see. But the word on Saleh is very good, right? Like, people have vouched for him. People have spoke of his presence, and clearly you can see him speak, and he's got a good demeanor about him. So I can't be mad at that at all, especially if it leads to DeShaun Watson being more attracted to your place as a destination. If they can trade for DeShaun Watson, absolutely you do that, because I think that organization needs 2 things first and foremost before it needs anything else. It needs culture or structure, and it needs a quarterback. So, you get those 2 things, you're in business, and then you can start talking about like weapons and all that, ancillary, the paint job, right? The sound system, all those things. But first you need the engine and the driver.
So if it wasn't the Jets or the Dolphins, which are his 2 preferred teams, which other teams do you think have a good shot, or maybe an under the radar shot at making a trade for DeShaun Watson? And maybe it would be worth it for them with their draft picks and their situation, maybe coaching wise too.
Oh, I think it's worth it for, 20 teams out there. I'd have to look and actually analyze the draft capital that some of these teams have. But of course, like a team like San Francisco jumps to mind, or Denver or Washington, the Rams, if that was somehow possible. There are a lot of teams out there that, you put DeShaun Watson on them and they look a lot better. I think the reason you've heard the Jets and the Dolphins so much is because where they are in this year's draft. And the Jets made that Jamal Adams trade, so they have other picks in tow. The Dolphins could theoretically, package Tua with the second pick in the draft. So I think that's the main reason you've heard those 2 teams is because of where they're at in the draft this year to put together a enticing trade package.
We are talking to senior host of SI and also the host of the Robin Lundberg Show, Robin Lundberg. Now, Robin, now we're getting on to baseball. We're moving on to baseball. The New York Mets make a trade for Francisco Lindor, Carrasco. Everybody thought they lost out on Springer and Brad Hand. And everybody thinks that Uncle Stevie's going to go out and spend the money and buy everybody, just like the New York Yankees. Are you surprised that the Mets haven't made any other big moves yet?
The Lindor move is a pretty significant move, right? I mean, that's the biggest move that most teams would make in any offseason when you get somebody who plays a defensive position and can hit like that. So, I mean, I think that's a, significant move. Obviously, the Mets had their own thing to deal with, like last week. They had to fire the GM over that creepy behavior. So that might actually put you a little bit behind for a second, because you have to think about the actual ramifications of that. That was the guy running the day-to-day. You're dealing with that. You got to get him out of the way. But I think, like I referenced it before with quarterbacks and culture. I always say that the 2 most important things you can have as a fan base are, 1, belief in your organization, and 2, like the people running it. 2 is a transcendent talent. The Mets have some talent. I don't know if you'd say anybody's like, headed directly to the Hall of Fame immediately, but they've upgraded their talent. And Cohen now in lieu of the Wilpons has to make you feel pretty good overall.
So what about just the overall market with baseball? We've seen it a lot where these players are signing later. They're signing for less than we initially thought. I mean, some of it is the pandemic. They've lost a lot of money. But are you surprised that this trend is still continuing, even going back to even the last 3 years? And how long do you think it will continue maybe these players struggling to get the contracts they want?
Well, I think what happened is it all got set out of whack, right? By some of those deals that you got thrown out, people signing 50-year deals, and so that set what the market was, and then people didn't want to hit that market. But you also have agents who are pushing for their player to hit that market. So I think that's probably some of the delay is the market correcting itself, and that takes a little bit of time to actually iron out. But still, even with the delays at times, you see guys once they do eventually sign, they're still winding up with fairly, handsome deals.
Well, you look at the Yankees, Robin, and the Yankees were really the team that started, overspending for players with George Steinbrenner. He was the guy that would give these players 8 or 9 year deals worth about 150, 160 million. And then all of a sudden this offseason with the COVID-19, the Yankees kind of changed the market, giving DJ LeMahieu a 6-year deal worth about $90 million. This is one of the best hitters in baseball. Do you see this as the Yankees, they started the trend on overpaying players. Now, do you think the Yankees have changed the trend to underpay players and give them more years?
Well, look, I think everybody's looking for market inefficiencies or things that they can capitalize on. It's not, it's not like the Yankees are the only team that is interested in signing players, right? So I don't think they can just dictate how it goes. I think again, you're dealing with the market correcting itself over time. And if you are I think if you are a team, you'd rather pay more per year than pay out all those years, because every single one of those deals we've thought about and gone, Bryce Harper, what's he look like at the end of that Phillies deal? Or remember, the deal Robinson Cano signed. Look how that, has wound up over time. Like those kind of deals that you don't want to be a part of. So I think you're seeing, the organizations trying to be a little bit more shrewd in the way that they're structuring these things. And the players are coming back down to to work it out in what benefits them best. But I mean, again, the deal you just cited, that's not NBA superstar numbers, but it's bigger than almost everybody in the NFL, right? I mean, that's like still a relatively good deal.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to the NFL because you actually had an interesting take on the Phillip Rivers retirement. There's a debate now whether Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer. That leads back to the Eli Manning. And both Errol and I think they're both Hall of Famers. He thinks Rivers is better than Eli. I think Eli's better. But what was your take on that and maybe this whole Hall of Fame debate, maybe just with the committee itself in terms of letting these players in?
Well, look, does Phillip Rivers pass that, oh my God, yes, of course he's a Hall of Famer thing? No, I don't think so. Like that instant reaction, like, yes, you put him in the Hall of Fame. Because I never thought of him as like a huge big game guy or somebody that I feared in those spots. In fact, he's only won more than one playoff game one time in his career. But then you actually look at his career that he had, plenty of winning seasons, plenty of playoff appearances, 5th all time in touchdown passes, 5th all time in passing yards. And it's going to be tough to keep him out based on that. And that's where ultimately I would vote him in. Like I never buy the first ballot or not nonsense. It's kind of like you're a Hall of Famer or you're not. My point kind of was, and you referenced it to a degree, if we're going to turn Eli Manning into some huge debate, then Phillip Rivers is a debate. I put them both in. I agree. I put them both in. But, one guy, Phillip Rivers has the edge statistically, but it's not like a landslide. And then my favorite thing about the Eli nonsense is, well, if you took away the 2 Super Bowls and the 2 Super Bowl MVPs, yeah, well, if you took away everybody's greatest accomplishments, they're not as good. There's a reason you're using them as part of the argument because they're big accomplishments. Most people don't. Aaron Rodgers just got eliminated. He's only won 1 Super Bowl. Drew Brees just got eliminated. He's only won 1 Super Bowl. So, yeah, Eli Manning might not touch those guys regular seasons, but it does matter that he had 2 successful playoff runs, won 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and beat Tom Brady twice.
Unbelievable.